In my previous life, my childhood friend Sarah became incredibly successful. She helped her high school boyfriend, Mark, become a famous celebrity, and she despised me for it. "Who asked you to interfere?" she would say. "I could have gotten into that top university without any help. You've been pretending to be depressed for years, always talking about ending your life. Why don't you just do it?" So I did. When I was reborn, I avoided Sarah completely. I worked behind the scenes to make sure she and Mark ended up together. Later, when she had lost everything, she knelt in the rain, filled with regret. "Alex," she said, "if I had listened to you back then, would things be different?" I opened my umbrella and walked past her, leaving her drenched and miserable without feeling any pity. "You told me to stay out of it," I reminded her. "I did. Why are you regretting it now?" The feeling of falling, the sharp pain in my body, the taste of blood in my mouth, it all came back to me. In my last moments, I thought I saw the heartbroken expressions on my parents' faces. Then, the darkness was replaced by a sudden brightness. "Alex, apologize," someone said. I looked around, confused. A blackboard filled with math problems, a rickety fan on the ceiling, desks piled with books. And there they were, my ex-wife and her high school crush. "Sarah, let it go," Mark said to her, his voice a mix of amusement and contempt, yet trying to sound forgiving. Alex was just a little upset. Everyone was whispering and looking at me. Sarah's face grew even more furious. My heart was racing, and my ears were ringing. What was happening? I was supposed to be dead. "What is this, Alex? Don't make me repeat myself." Sarah's cold voice brought me back to the present. It took me a moment to understand what was going on. I was back in high school. The person in front of me, demanding an apology without knowing the full story, was Sarah, my childhood friend, and the woman who had wished for my death. Today was the weekly school cleanup. My notebook, filled with all my mistakes from the semester, had gone missing. When I politely asked Mark about it, Sarah had rushed to his defense and started yelling at me. I pushed down the wave of hatred I felt and tried to stay calm. When I looked up, my eyes were red. "Sarah, that was my notebook," I said. "It had a whole semester's worth of my mistakes in it. You even helped me write down some of the examples." As a teenager, I had been proud and stubborn. When I argued with Mark, I refused to back down, which allowed him to play the victim and get sympathy from others. But now, I had learned from my past mistakes. I wasn't going after Mark directly. Emily, the class monitor, said that Mark was in charge of the trash today, I explained. I was just asking him. Perhaps because I had never shown this kind of vulnerability before, Sarah was momentarily speechless. The other students started to look at me with sympathy. "Sarah, don't be so harsh," said Emily, the class monitor I had mentioned. "Alex didn't do anything to Mark. I just told him who was on duty today. I wasn't lying." I sneered to myself. She hadn't lied, but she had certainly stirred up trouble between me and Mark, always siding with whoever was closer to Sarah. In my past life, I hadn't mentioned Emily at first. When I asked her about it later, she denied everything and said, "Alex, making a mistake is one thing, but you can't falsely accuse others." My missing notebook had somehow turned Mark and Emily into the victims. Emily's words had changed how everyone in the class saw me, and gradually no one believed me anymore. Sarah's disgust for me grew with each passing day. I wiped away my tears and turned to Mark, my voice trembling slightly, but my words clear. "I just asked if you saw my notebook in the trash, Mark. Why did you call everyone over to accuse me? Or," my tone shifted, "do you also think someone did this on purpose?" Mark's face turned pale, and he stammered, "What are you talking about? Since you're so concerned, why don't we go check the security cameras together?" I interrupted him, casually suggesting the idea. Mark fell silent, and Sarah looked at him with suspicion. I got the class president and another student to come with me to find the teacher and go to the security room. It really was Mark, the class president whispered in surprise. The video showed Mark throwing my notebook on the floor, stomping on it a few times, and then tossing it in the trash. I was calm on the outside, but inside I felt a mix of amusement and sadness. Such a small thing had led to me being isolated and ostracized for so long in my previous life. Sarah's favoritism had made me lose my mind. I had cried for 2 whole classes before thinking to check the cameras, but by then, Mark had already deleted the footage. This time I didn't give him the chance. "Teacher, could you please make a copy of this recording for me?" I asked. The teacher looked uneasy. "Alex, you know about Mark's family situation. I'll have him apologize to you. How about we just—" "Teacher, he needs to apologize to me," I insisted. "This is bullying. I don't want to cause trouble for you, but I need this as evidence to protect myself." I knew the teacher wanted to smooth things over. Mark was a scholarship student from a poor county, and his good looks had made him popular. The school didn't want any negative publicity. But after dying once, I wasn't afraid of any of this. Just as I was about to say more, a clear voice came from behind me. "A person's family background shouldn't be an excuse for bad behavior. If the weak are always considered right, then no one would need to work hard. We could all just compete to see who is more miserable." Everyone turned to see a graceful and intelligent-looking girl with a calm smile. "Sorry, teacher. I couldn't help but overhear," she said, holding up her phone to show she had recorded the video. "It's Laura, our class valedictorian." The other student's eyes lit up. Of course I knew who she was. Her name was always at the top of the list in every exam. The teacher finally gave in, copied the recording for me, and made Mark apologize in front of the whole class. Mark kept saying he didn't do it on purpose, but no one believed him. Amid the surprised gasps of the class and Sarah's shocked face, I calmly accepted his apology, one that I had been waiting for since my past life. "Mark, you owe me this," I thought to myself. "Don't cry yet. The real show is just beginning." The bell rang, and I grabbed my backpack and ran home, ignoring Sarah's calls. Standing at my front door, my heart was pounding, but I was afraid to open it. The hatred I felt for Sarah and Mark was matched only by the guilt and regret I felt for my parents. I was terrified that this was all just a hallucination before death. "Alex, what are you doing just standing there, kid? Come on in, you're all sweaty. How come you're home 20 minutes early today?" My parents' voices came from behind me. I turned around stiffly and saw the parents I had only seen in my dreams. I couldn't stop myself from running into their arms. That night I snuck out of my room and stood outside my parents' door, listening to the sound of their steady breathing. It was only then that I finally felt at ease. I was really reborn. My parents were alive, and everything could be different. "Alex," Sarah's voice made me freeze. It had only been a day, but it felt like a lifetime. I hadn't slept at all the night before, filled with excitement and joy as I replayed the events of my past life. Sarah and I had grown up together, but everything changed when Mark arrived. Mark, with his dazzling introduction on the podium, had captured Sarah's attention and gradually influenced her with his ideas of a carefree and adventurous youth. "Where I come from, a lot of kids drop out of school and start working. They come back a few years later as successful business owners, managing college graduates," he would say. "Sarah, I came to this big city to live, not to bury myself in books. You only get one youth, and I don't want to waste it." Back then, Mark would pull Sarah out of class, and they would run down the street in their school uniforms, attracting surprised stares from passers-by. Sarah, who had always been a rule follower, fell in love with this new sense of freedom, and with Mark, the one who had shown it to her. Sarah's parents had begged me to talk to her, but my attempts only made her more rebellious. "Alex, don't you have any passion for life? Why can't you be more like Mark?" she would say with a frown. The memories of 2 lifetimes merged as Sarah stood before me, calling my name with a frown. "Alex," she said again. I snapped back to reality, my voice calm. "What is it?" My cold response made her pause, and her voice sounded a little strained. "About yesterday." I cut her off. "There's no need to talk about it. Just tell Mark to stay away from me. I won't pursue what happened yesterday." The teacher, though biased, had reminded me that it was a minor issue. I wouldn't gain much by holding on to Mark's mistake, and besides, I had other plans for the 2 of them. Seeing that I wouldn't say more, Sarah sighed with relief, her gaze heavy. "That's good. Staying away is good too. I'm glad to see you're okay." Her words were confusing, and I didn't understand them at first. After she walked away, a shiver ran down my spine. Sarah's expression was completely different from the day before. The complicated and resistant look in her eyes was all too familiar. It was the same look she had given me years into our marriage. Could it be that Sarah was back too? "Students participating in the competition, please pay attention," the teacher announced. "There are only a few days left. This could be your chance to secure a guaranteed admission spot, so you must take this opportunity seriously." The teacher looked at Sarah, but she sat there calmly, showing no reaction. A small smile appeared on my face. Now I was certain. Sarah had also returned to this world. At this time in my past life, I was worried about the changes in Sarah and the distance growing between us. I still didn't understand the conflict between living a passionate youth and studying hard. Then, Sarah caused more trouble. She wanted to drop out of the academic competition, a competition where she had a high chance of getting a guaranteed admission. The teachers all tried to convince her not to be so impulsive. Sarah's parents were frantic. In the restroom, I overheard Mark bragging, "This is an agreement between me and Sarah. On the day of the competition, she and another girl, Ivy, will be off campus, proving in their own ways who loves me more." Ivy was a well-known troublemaker from a nearby school. I didn't know how Mark had gotten her attention, and I understood even less why Sarah would give up the competition to prove her unconventional love, or to leave a dramatic mark on her youth. Such ideas were beyond me. Out of our long friendship, I told Sarah's parents what I had heard. I never imagined it would ruin my life. On the day of the competition, Sarah's parents called the police, who broke up the gathering of troublemakers and forced Sarah to take part in the competition. Ivy held a grudge against me and often attacked me on my way home from school. My parents, worried for my safety, started driving me to and from school every day. But one rainy night before the college entrance exams, they died in a car accident. I fell into a deep depression after my parents' death, couldn't take the exams, and tried to end my life several times. Sarah's mother felt incredibly guilty and forced Sarah to break up with Mark and marry me after college. Meanwhile, Sarah got into a top university with her competition results and, during her graduate studies, co-developed a groundbreaking drug, becoming known as a genius biologist with a bright future. I lived in a daze, indifferent to everything, until the day Sarah came home drunk, stared at me, and shattered the fragile peace between us. It was only then that I realized my kindness had earned me years of her resentment. Mark had entered the entertainment industry, and Sarah had used all her connections and money to make him famous, only to find out he was marrying an actress. "Sarah, it's a shame you're already married. We were never meant to be," he had told her. She grabbed my hair, pushed me to the ground, and screamed, "Who asked you to interfere? I could have gotten into that university without the competition, and Mark wouldn't have left me. You've been faking depression for years, always threatening to die. Wasn't it enough that you got your parents killed? You had to drag me down with you for a lifetime. Alex, why don't you just die already?" I had been numb for years, and her curses didn't affect me. But the words, "got your parents killed," broke through all my defenses. I couldn't bear the weight anymore and jumped from the roof. Before I fell, I thought I heard Sarah's heartbreaking scream. Maybe she didn't really want me to die. Maybe she was just afraid of being implicated. But in this life, just as in my past one, I had no time or need to figure out her thoughts. After what happened yesterday, the students had all seen Mark for who he really was, and Sarah was no exception. Yet she still chose to repeat her past mistakes, determined to give up the guaranteed admission and pursue her romance with Mark. Although I didn't know why she had been reborn, it didn't stop my hand from trembling with excitement as I held my pen. "Come on, my arrogant ex-wife," I thought. "I know you better than you know yourself. You will experience every bit of the pain I went through. Alex, I'm still worried. Please keep an eye on Sarah at school. If she skips class again, you have to tell me." Sarah's mother's request was the same as in my past life. I smiled and agreed, but my eyes were cold. In reality, I didn't say a word. I even helped cover for her and Mark. "Alex, I feel like you've changed." Sarah often came to talk to me these days. Since I no longer lectured her about Mark, she was more willing to open up to me. I kept my head down, focusing on my work. "Really? You're very perceptive then." "But I can't quite figure out what's different," she said. My lowered eyes were filled with coldness. "Thanks to you, in my past life, I was mentally unstable. You've probably forgotten what a normal me is like." The academic representative suddenly slid a report card in front of me. "I know Alex got stronger." Seeing my improving scores and rank, a genuine smile appeared on my face. After so many years, I had forgotten a lot of the material, but thankfully, my ability to understand was better than when I was a teenager. With some effort, I could catch up. "Alex, I've highlighted the key points in your new mistake notebook." A brand new notebook flew over Sarah's head and landed on my desk. I dropped my cold attitude towards Sarah and smiled warmly at Laura. "Thanks, genius. I'll buy you a drink tomorrow." Laura waved her hand. "A drink is a must, but you also need to get into the top 200 in the next monthly exam." I smiled and agreed. Sarah watched our friendly interaction and interrupted. "Alex, what about your old mistake notebook?" "I threw it out," I replied flatly. "It was in the trash for so long, it's disgusting." She fell silent, her face darkening. After Laura left, Sarah remained in her seat, lost in thought. "Still here?" I asked impatiently. "Alex, when did you and Laura get so close?" she asked, a hint of annoyance in her voice. I found it amusing. "Sarah, you were the one who blindly sided with Mark without knowing the truth. You were the one who chose to protect him even when there was clear evidence against him. What right do you have to question who I'm friends with?" My voice grew louder, the suppressed hatred swirling inside me. No, Mark wasn't the most important thing. What I wanted to say was much more than that. There was also my self-righteous, years-long friendship, a kindness that felt like it had been thrown away, my parents' innocent deaths, your years of resentment, and the agony of my desperate jump from the building. In what way did I ever wrong you, Sarah? However, to Sarah, my words sounded like I was jealous of Mark, just as she remembered from her past. She paused, then smiled smugly. "Are you still fighting with Mark? I told you he's the one I like, and you're my most important friend. If you two get along, we can all still be good friends." I scoffed, suddenly feeling that I was also to blame. I was blind and foolish for not seeing how shameless Sarah was. If it weren't for my future plans, I would have slapped her right then and there. I was having an internal struggle, while Sarah looked at my report card with a flicker of hesitation in her eyes. Alarm bells went off in my head. I quickly pretended to be concerned. "The competition is tomorrow. Your mom asked me to remind you to go home early today so you don't mess up your performance." As I expected, as soon as I said that, Sarah's brow furrowed with irritation. "I know, mind your own business." I nodded with satisfaction. "Indeed, it wasn't my business. I couldn't wait for you to get exactly what you wished for." A few days later, the competition results were announced, and the classroom was buzzing. No way! Sarah didn't even take the competition. I heard she got into a fight with some troublemaker from another school for Mark. I saw the video. Mark was so moved he cried and hugged Sarah, saying she was the one who loved him most. Wow, people are so different. We spend our youth cramming for tests while they're skipping class, fighting, and making epic declarations of love. So romantic, like something out of a novel. I smiled and stood up. From the hallway, I could hear Sarah's mother's anguished cries. "How could you do this? Your father and I saw you go into the school. How could you sneak out and get into a fight? How are you going to get into college without the competition results?" Onlookers pointed and whispered. Sarah's face was a mix of pale and green, but her tone was defiant. "Mom, even without the competition, even without breaking up with Mark, I can still get into that top university, and in the future I'll develop the most advanced biopharmaceuticals." I stood in the crowd, watching her quietly, knowing full well why her mother was so upset. Sarah had a talent for biology, but her other subjects were not great. To think she could get into a top university based solely on the standardized exams was a delusion, probably fueled by her past success and overconfidence. "I just came from the office. All the teachers are praising your huge improvement," Laura said as she walked by, carrying a stack of homework, ignoring Sarah and her mother. "Can't compare to you," I said, pointing to her name on the competition results board. "You won a gold medal and you're still planning to take the standardized exams." She smiled. "True, you have a major you like even more. For a real genius, guaranteed admission is just one option, but for some people, it might be their biggest chance." I glanced at Sarah and saw her gloomy face. A feeling of immense satisfaction washed over me. Sarah losing her chance at guaranteed admission was a done deal. Her sacrificial love for Mark and her pursuit of a rebellious youth were indeed different. Whether it was worth it, Sarah would find out sooner or later. Senior year flew by. The countdown to the college entrance exams hung over everyone's head. Sarah's story of giving up her guaranteed admission for love gradually faded from memory, except for Mark, who strutted around like a peacock. "My girlfriend gave up her guaranteed admission for me. Aren't you all jealous?" he would say. The classmates would give a few half-hearted responses. Not getting the admiration he expected, he turned to me. "Alex, I'm really sorry. Sarah used to care a lot about you, right? It's my fault for making you two grow apart." I pretended to be surprised. "Sarah's concern. What would I do with that?" Someone snorted with laughter. I heard a desk being kicked violently behind me, but didn't bother to turn around. Mark's face flushed red. "Playing tough, huh? Don't think I don't know. You totally have a crush on Sarah." "Oh yeah, totally," I said. "I'm so into her. Seeing you two together is worse than death. Satisfied?" The classmates couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Alex?" Sarah growled, her face grim. Without the halo of a student with guaranteed admission, Sarah was no longer in the limelight. Her parents and teachers were extremely disappointed in her, and her classmates looked at her differently. Even I, her formerly obedient childhood friend, often made sarcastic remarks. "What are you yelling about?" Laura's voice came from the doorway. She slapped the mock exam results onto the teacher's desk, her gaze towards Sarah cold and disdainful. "Look how many points Alex is ahead of you. Who do you think you're bossing around?" Everyone's teasing, gazes darted between Laura and me. I couldn't help but blush, and quickly nudged Laura back to her classroom. Sarah stared at my retreating back, lost in thought. Sarah, whose overall grades only put her in the middle of the pack, finally started showing signs of anxiety. She had no way out now. If she failed the college entrance exams, her past sacrifice for love would become a joke. Sarah began to desperately try to catch up, refusing Mark's invitation several times. But how could I let her succeed? "Sarah, did you and Mark have a fight? I heard he's going to a bar with Ivy tonight," I said during evening study hall, my expression sincere, as if I were genuinely worried about their love. Sarah clenched her pen and finally ran out. I smiled with satisfaction. That's right. Her time couldn't be solely dedicated to studying. She also had to make time for her love and her youth. "Teacher, Sarah and Mark skipped evening study hall again." The teacher's initial anger gradually turned to disappointment, and finally, he just sighed. Let her be. The biology teacher especially gave Sarah the cold shoulder. If I had known she was such a disappointment, I would have given the competition spot to another student. After the second mock exam results came out, I gave myself a night off from evening study hall, sneaking off to the track to run and stargaze. Unexpectedly, I ran into many classmates. We looked at each other and smiled, a silent understanding passing between us. Our eyes were filled with an unwavering determination. I looked up at the stars and asked myself, isn't a youth spent striving and struggling passionate enough? Sarah got pregnant and had an abortion. This news became the hottest gossip before the college entrance exams. I heard the principal was furious. Our school has been around for so many years, and this is the first time something like this has happened. Mark's parents came to the school to beg for leniency for her. Sarah's parents really laid into them, saying Sarah's uterus was damaged and demanding Mark pay hundreds of thousands in compensation. This is too much drama, right? Our school is a top-tier high school. This kind of thing is so embarrassing. Still envy those novel-like scenarios? Don't be ridiculous. We were just talking. Who knew they'd actually dare to do it? Sarah's mom fainted in the principal's office from high blood pressure. So pitiful. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I finally hit send. The whole farce ended with Mark applying to drop out and Sarah taking a long leave of absence, never appearing at school again. The college entrance exams arrived as scheduled. My classmates, like warriors heading into battle, exchanged looks of conviction before wielding their pens, leaving their youth and sweat on the answer sheets. The days waiting for the results were filled with anxiety and excitement. Seeing the scores brought joy to some and sorrow to others. When filling out college applications, every point felt precious. The happiness of the whole family embracing upon receiving the acceptance letter. All of this was my youth. At the postgraduation class reunion, everyone chatted about their respective universities. Alex, your university is up north, right? The teacher specifically mentioned you, said you improved so much in your last year. Isn't that the truth? Alex and Sarah used to be so close. Who would have thought? Sarah, well, it's a pity. Which university did she apply to? A girl shook her head. Seems like an ordinary university. She was lucky not to have that incident with Mark put on her record. Actually, Sarah's scores shouldn't have been that low. Maybe her mental state was affected. Everyone fell silent for a moment, but the topic quickly shifted, and the atmosphere livened up again. Alex, congratulations. Our universities are in the same city. Let's keep in touch. Laura from the next table walked over with her glass, and I smiled and clinked glasses with her. College life was rich and colorful, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. During one vacation home, I saw my mom carrying many nutritional supplements and placing them by the door. Mom, who are you going to visit? Before my mom could answer, an angry shout came from downstairs. Get out! You chose this path yourself, and now you have the nerve to question your mother and me? Get out! My mother sighed softly. It's Sarah's mother. She's pregnant with her second child. She's older, so the pregnancy symptoms are quite severe. The sky outside was overcast, a loud clap of thunder, and then a torrential downpour. I stood by the window and saw Sarah kneeling on the ground, her eyes empty, her luggage thrown out of the house by her angry father. Sarah's mother has had a hard life too. Sarah had such a bright future. Who knew things would turn out like this? I looked away and said playfully, "My dear mother, your son is right here, and you're still worrying about other people's children. I'm going to get jealous." "You silly child, always talking nonsense." Mom smiled and patted my head, no longer sad about Sarah. Perhaps because everyone was on vacation, the high school alumni group chat was buzzing with gossip again. "You all know, right? Our campus heartthrob Mark tried to become an influencer through live streaming a while back. Just as he gained some followers, he was exposed for being a kept man, a home wrecker. The original partner showed up and slapped him around, apparently disfiguring his face. I heard Sarah introduced him to the live streaming company, spent money on connections to get him packaged. She even used her tuition money on him. But then he turned around and dumped Sarah. Sarah's parents are furious with her, threatening to disown her. I don't know if Sarah snapped or something, but she keeps saying she still has a chance, wants to develop some drug. Doesn't she see what kind of university she's at? They don't even have a lab. What research is she going to do? Dream on. I searched for Mark online, and sure enough, one expose after another popped up. I silently registered an account, posted the video of Mark intentionally throwing away my mistake notebook back then, as well as the story of his and Sarah's abortion and dropout, then promptly deleted the account. Grabbing an umbrella, I went downstairs. Sarah was still kneeling in the rain, looking as pathetic as a stray dog. She saw me too and tried to straighten her back, attempting to hide her wretchedness. I held the umbrella over her head. This small gesture seemed to break her defenses. Sarah said hoarsely, "Alex, if I had listened to your advice back then, would things be different?" I moved the umbrella away, and in her confused gaze, a smile spread across my face. "You know very well how things would have ended, don't you? You told me to mind my own business, as you wished. Why the regret now?" Sarah's face instantly turned deathly pale. Her lips trembled. "You don't thank me. I just helped cover for you and Mark, helped you achieve your wish of giving up the competition." I savored her miserable state, my smile growing wider. "Oh, and I also happened to remind your auntie she still had time to have another child. You didn't listen to advice, but your mother did." Sarah struggled to get up, but having knelt for too long, she collapsed to the ground. "Alex, how can you be so vicious?" The umbrella tilted slightly, shielding my actions from view. I lifted my foot and pressed it onto her face, grinding it a few times, just as she had done to me in our past life. "Angry already? It's not over yet. Hang in there, Sarah." I felt my voice was like a demon's whisper, chillingly cold in the rain. At Laura's invitation, I often visited her university to learn and observe. One day at lunch, a few familiar upperclassmen joined our table. One of them majored in biopharmaceuticals. I casually mentioned seeing the latest research on a certain drug in a foreign journal. Although the experiment had failed, their methodology had gained recognition from industry experts. That upperclassman's eyes lit up. After a flurry of searching on his phone, he quickly wolfed down his food and rushed off to the lab. The others teased him about being obsessed with academics, while I watched his retreating back and smiled. Indeed, in my previous life, after Sarah won her award, I had read her academic report over and over again just so I wouldn't embarrass her at her celebration party. I never expected to be met with her, "Why don't you just die already?" I couldn't understand the more detailed content of the report, but the key points I remembered were enough for someone with talent comparable to Sarah's to discover its brilliance. Sarah, your success was merely standing on the shoulders of giants. Without opportunities and platforms, your talent is but the glow of a firefly, fleeting and far from irreplaceable. A few months later, Laura handed me an award photo, an academic paper, and a handwritten thank you letter. The lab-obsessed senior had specifically asked her to thank me. The foreign journal article I mentioned had helped their team overcome an experimental hurdle, and the drug they developed had just received international organization certification. The young people in the photo were all brimming with ambition, shining in their respective fields. In the acknowledgement section of the academic paper, my name was prominently listed. Faced with this weighty gratitude, I felt it a loss, able only to bury an unspoken shame deep in my heart and offer them my sincerest congratulations. Later, I received a call from my mom. After some small talk, she mentioned Sarah's family. Sarah's mother gave birth a while ago. Mother and son are both fine. The old couple is much happier now. Sarah's mental state is very poor. A few days ago, she saw something on TV and suddenly went berserk, saying someone plagiarized her research and threatening to sue them. Sarah was sent to a psychiatric hospital. They said it's as if they never had this daughter. Oh, enough about other people's business. Quick, ask my son when he's coming home. Alex, Dad will pick you up at the station. My parents' voices echoed in my ears, filling my heart with warmth. The hatred and resentment of the past finally dissipated. I looked out the window. The sky was azure, the sunlight bright and dazzling. My phone chimed, a message from Laura. Hey, let's grab lunch together. I smiled and replied, then got up to meet her. My future is long and bright. Sarah's epilogue. I don't know why I was reborn. A flood of memories instantly rushed into my mind. The clearest was this afternoon, when Alex and Mark had an argument. I hadn't expected Mark to do something like that, but he said with red eyes, "You and Alex are so close. I was just a little jealous of him. I wanted your attention only on me." The dream of my youth stood before me. I couldn't refuse. The next day I found Alex. Knowing his personality, he wouldn't let it go easily. I wanted him to stop dwelling on it. To my surprise, he was extremely cold towards me and even more dismissive of Mark. This had never happened before. I didn't think much of it. Seeing a vibrant Alex, I breathed a long sigh of relief. This was good too. I could once again pursue my truest love, and he and his family could live well. Having learned my lesson, I didn't make a big deal out of it like last time. On the day of the competition, under my parents' watchful eyes, I walked into the school, but I didn't enter the exam hall. The day the competition results were announced, the whole school was in an uproar. My mother cried bitterly outside the classroom. The teacher who valued me most was utterly disappointed. The teasing and gossip from classmates were constant. For some people, this might be their biggest chance. Alex's words floated through the crowd. A bad premonition stirred within me, but I could only feign composure in front of everyone. No matter. The most important thing was that the boy I yearned for finally rushed into my arms. I finally had my handsome man. At that moment, I thought Alex really was a busybody. But my elation lasted only a short while. My persistently low grades made me panic. "Sarah, you really messed up, huh? Only 20 points higher than me. That score won't get you into that top university." Emily's mocking voice rang in my ears. I ignored her. I knew her words echoed what many were thinking. The more glamorous I once was, the more they now anticipated my downfall. What also frustrated me were Alex and Laura. Their far-leading scores, their growing closeness day by day, were all things I couldn't reach. Now, after refusing Mark a few times, he started throwing tantrums. "Sarah, did you and Mark have a fight? I heard he's going to a bar with Ivy tonight." During evening study hall, Alex's words made me freeze. I wanted to see concern in his eyes, but there was none, perhaps even a hint of schadenfreude. His gaze provoked me. I threw down my pen and went to find Mark. I didn't dare to distinguish right from wrong. I only knew that if I lost Mark again, I would truly become a laughingstock. That night, Mark took me to a hotel off campus. The obsession of 2 lifetimes made me lose my mind. I kept telling myself my choice wasn't wrong until my mother fainted before my eyes. I felt like I'd been hit over the head. Mark's parents were vulgar, their saliva spraying on my face. My father, who had stood tall his whole life, bowed his head to plead for me. I silently took a long leave of absence, studied at home, and took the college entrance exams. My dismal scores were reflected in my parents' disappointed eyes. I casually filled in a few university choices. It's okay, I consoled myself. My research findings were firmly etched in my mind. As long as I could replicate the experimental data, I would still be the most promising biologist. After starting university, I was dumbfounded. In my past life, I had access to top-tier resources, equipment, funding, materials, mentors. I just needed to focus on my research. But here there wasn't even a separate lab. I was unwilling to accept this. Thinking of Mark's good looks, I gritted my teeth and used my tuition money to connect him with a live streaming company. If he could become an instant hit, it would also help me revive my dreams. I never expected Mark to be so heartless. So what if I spent your money? You owe me this. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been forced to drop out. He berated me, and then blocked me. All our past intimacy and sweet nothings vanished into thin air. When his name reappeared, it was accompanied by all sorts of scandals. I felt nothing. During a break, I went home. My mother's belly was swollen. Her eyes held a tenderness I hadn't seen in a long time. I couldn't believe it. I questioned them, screaming. My mother, her pregnancy at risk, looked pained. My father's slap landed heavily. I was kicked out of the house. Under the pouring rain, my mind was blank. How did it come to this? Why did it happen like this? An umbrella appeared over my head. I looked at Alex, clinging to him like a last ray of hope. But the ruthlessness in his voice terrified me. A clap of thunder exploded. I finally understood his abnormal behavior in this life. I wanted to argue with Alex, but he pressed me under his foot, saying it wasn't over. I couldn't help but tremble. What else did he want to do? The TV broadcasted the latest breakthroughs in biopharmaceutical research. I saw familiar experimental reports, saw unfamiliar faces go on stage to receive awards. The last thread in my mind snapped. That's my research. They plagiarized it. They're thieves, liars. I smashed the TV, tore up the journal. I wanted to sue them, to reclaim the honor that belonged to me. With an injection of a sedative, the world fell silent. On my first night in the psychiatric hospital, I had a rare good night's sleep. In my dreams, I remembered the past of the past. Alex was dead. My last memory of him was his desperate, empty, yet hate-filled eyes as he jumped from the rooftop. After giving my statement to the police, I sat in the station in a daze. My mother, rushing in, slapped me hard. Is this how you took care of Alex? If it weren't for you back then. I was extremely annoyed and cut her off. Enough! Back then! I didn't ask him to do those things for me. His parents weren't killed by me either. Why should I have to pay with my whole life? You. My mother was shocked by my words and raised her hand again. Quiet, both of you. This isn't the place for you to argue. Alex's family, come sign this. The police officer handed me a form and looked me up and down. I understood the disdain in his eyes. In the interrogation room, I had confessed what happened years ago. The facts were clear, nothing much to investigate. Alex's death was a suicide. Legally, I wasn't responsible. Returning home to the empty house, I shivered for no reason. In our wedding photo, Alex's smile was the same as ever. I recalled the day we took that photo. Suffering from depression, Alex's condition was always poor, but that day he forced himself to be cheerful and even apologized to me. "Sarah, I know your mom forced you. When I get a little better, I'll talk to her about us getting a divorce." I forgot what I was feeling at that moment. Looking back now, it was probably guilt. After we got married, I wasn't good to Alex. I should have been good to him, whether because of our childhood friendship or the misfortune his entire family suffered because they helped me. But this kindness was too heavy, suffocating me. I began to resent Alex, thinking more than once. I never asked him to. If I had known, I would rather he hadn't helped me. This thought reached its peak the day I learned Mark was engaged. Fueled by alcohol, I unleashed years of pent-up resentment. I hit Alex, spewing hurtful words. When I came to my senses, the wind on the rooftop was so cold. Amidst my terrified screams, Alex left decisively. On the table was a familiar manuscript, covered in dense annotations. It was my award-winning paper. Alex, to celebrate my success, had read the abstruse research report over and over again. The papers fluttered down. I didn't dare look at his eyes in the wedding photo. A small favor earns gratitude. A big one breeds resentment. At that moment, I finally admitted it all. My malice towards Alex stemmed from the clear knowledge that I owed him too much. I couldn't sleep night after night, forced to rely on alcohol and medication to numb myself. My lab work also fell behind, and my team members grew increasingly dissatisfied with me. I forced myself to rejoin the team, but chronic insomnia led to mental exhaustion, making it impossible for me to concentrate on experiments. "Sarah, winning the award was just the first step. If you continue to slack off like this, I'll have no choice but to remove you from the team." My parents took me to the hospital. The doctor's words plunged me into hell. I had developed a mental illness. The words I once used to mock Alex had come true for me. My mother cried, saying it was all karma. After a year of intermittent treatment, I pulled strings everywhere to return to the team, only to find that my position had long been filled by someone else. My career was ruined just as it had begun. That night I messaged Mark, explaining my situation. We had been in occasional contact over the past year. Without me to support him, he had gradually faded from the entertainment industry, and his engagement to the actress was never mentioned again. He repeatedly hinted that he wanted me to help him again, but I was powerless, and my replies were always vague. "Mark, is there still a chance for us?" I sent the message with a final shred of hope. Did I still love him that deeply? I didn't know. Perhaps it was just to prove that my long-held persistence wasn't wrong. However, the reply I received was a bright red exclamation mark. As if I had expected it. My heart was calm. I went to the rooftop where Alex had left. I closed my eyes and jumped. Drifting in and out of dreams, I returned to high school. The scene of Mark and me skipping class, talking nonsense about freedom, flashed by. The last image that lingered was Alex looking at me intently. "Sarah, stop skipping class. Your aunt and uncle are very worried about you, and I'm very worried too. All your years of hard work shouldn't go to waste." He frowned slightly, the concern in his eyes pure and genuine. All for me. Alex wanted to say more. I heard my own hoarse, choked voice say, "Okay." After 2 lifetimes, I finally knew what I had missed, but it was all too late.